Hey folks, it is time for another one of Victoria's fantastic seasonal challenges. We have a bingo board here with a variety of prompts on, and we're going to try and read books to fill each of them out, if you have not come across this concept before. The autumn reading challenge is running from the 1st of September until the 30th of November, so a plenty amount of time to attempt to read 24 books. We shall see how well everyone gets on. I usually manage it, but my reading has been non-existent lately, so I might actually fail it this time, but it's still going to get me to read more books that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise, so I'm always here for this. I have a ridiculous number of books on my NetGalley that I need to get to, and I've been putting off because I've been focusing on reading my physical books. I'm not mad at that, but it has meant I'm now behind on my NetGalley reads, so there's going to be a lot of photo putting on the video today and a lot of referring back to my list, because a lot of these are my books from NetGalley that I've managed to fit into the prompts. I didn't get all of them in, but I got a fair few, so let's dive in. A book that I'm going to match to my drink, The Last to Drown. So I was like, oh, what does that cover look like? I'm matching it to water. She's done this prompt before, but the only thing I really match to my drink is coffee, because that's really what I drink, is coffee, water and Diet Coke. So yeah, we're going for water. The Last to Drown by Noelle W. Ely. This will be my fourth or fifth I think book by her. She writes really gripping and fast-paced thrillers and mysteries, and I really enjoy them. I don't know much about what this is about. I believe that they go on some sort of boating rafting trip and they've got no contact to the outside world. There's like 20 of them, and obviously I'm assuming someone tries to murder someone or someone does get murdered. We shall see. Then the next prompt is a book that is featuring magic. Now this could of course have been a lot, but I'm going for the Muddle Puddle Manual of Magic or something along those lines. This one very clearly seems to be within that category, and also just looks like a really cute, fun, cozy time, and I am trying to fit in quite a few books here over this time period, so we want to have fun ones to squeeze into. Then a book with leaves on the cover, and I'm going with The Night Watch by Thomas D. Lee. I fucking loved the first book I read by them, and I'm genuinely annoyed that Goldsborough isn't doing another matching special edition like they did for the first book, because oh my god, the first book, Perilous Times I think it was so fucking good. It's the best women characters I've ever read written by a man. It is fantastic, engrossing, fast-paced fantasy, and Night Watch looks like it's going to be more of the same. This one seems to be Arthurian retelling mixed in with modern age stuff. I genuinely didn't look, I just knew I wanted it. Then the first physical book I'm going to be holding up, and that is for the prompt of disability representation, and I am going with Unwell Women by Pellinor. Now there may be disability representation in some of my other books that I'm reading, but I don't know. I haven't looked into them enough to know if they have that, so instead I'm going with this non-fiction, A Journey Through Medicine and Myth in a Man-Made World. So this is all about having to deal with the medical system whilst being assigned female at birth or female presenting, and how many issues that causes. I have dealt with this personally. I bring Mr. Pellinor along with me to appointments, usually the second appointment because I try on my own first, because I actually get results when a man is sat next to me versus when I'm there on my own, despite saying the same things. So I'm looking forward to this book. It says it unpacks the roots of the perpetual misunderstanding, mystification and misdiagnosis of women's illness and pain. So this is going to be right up my alley, and I'm really looking forward to finally having an excuse to delve into it. Okay, the next book is from a favourite author. Now I have a few that could fit this category, but only one that I know is going to be out at this time, or that I have access to. As We Fall Through Time by Claire North. I have read and loved a number of books by Claire North. The only book I've read from her and didn't love, I've mentioned this before, was Touch, and it's a book all about physical, like bumping into people in the streets and how that like transfers things, and I read it during COVID, which is not Claire North's fault. So that's the only book of hers that I haven't liked, so I'm really looking forward to As We Fall Through Time. I know nothing about it. Again, this is just, it was Claire North. Thank you very much. Then a seasonal read, and I went with Telltale. This seems like it's going to be a cozy mystery whodunit, and that always gives me autumnal vibes. Unless it's very specifically set in a different season, I always get autumnal vibes from these sort of books. So I'm hoping, even though this is like 450 pages, I'm hoping I'm going to blast through it. Okay, a book with BIPOC Rep, that is Black, Indigenous and People of Colour. And for this one I went with another non-fiction. I do have others that I could have went with, Empress Crowned in Red, I've got the Merciless ones, Washington Back, but I wanted another non-fiction on my TBR for this. I like reading one a month, so I tried to make sure I had at least 3 non-fictions in this, and I went with The New Age of Empire, How Racism and Colonialism Still Ruled the World by Kehinde Andrews. And this has no synopsis, why would it need one? The Observer says that this provides readers with a solid grounding in the 500-year history of racial capitalism, a primary text for a new generation of students of anti-racism looking to get to grips with the violence of our imperial inheritance. Considering that the British Empire is the biggest one that the world has seen so far, I feel like there's going to be a lot of relevant stuff in here, and whilst it is small, the writing is also. So this one is going to be a slow read, but a very worthwhile one. Next prompt. A book with the title that starts with either A, U, T, M or N. The letters that spell out autumn. I went with M. Why are my non-fictions in a row? I didn't do this on purpose. And that is Mountains of Fire, The Secret Lives of Volcanoes by Clive Oppenheimer. This, obviously, is a book about volcanoes. So let's see, what is this? Blending cultural, history, science, myth and adventure, Mountains of Fire reminds us that wherever we are on the planet, our stories are profoundly intertwined with volcanoes. So we learn about the history of them, I do believe, along with their current activity. Let's see, what upsets volcanoes? Night market of the ghosts, lava floods and hurtling flames. I'm going to have a wonderful time with this. I've been keeping it on my TBR for a long time, but I'm hoping that this could be, my birthday's in October and I turned 30 this year, so this may be a treat to myself to read this in October. Then a book that is translated, back to NetGalley for this, and I am reading Tsubaki Stationery Store. So this is another translated Japanese fiction. There are a lot of them. I could have picked a few different books. I was tempted by The Heart of the Nagara, and I was also tempted by some that I physically own. For example, The Full Moon Coffee Shop was my original pick for this. However, the NetGalley needs reading, and this is a lot of reading, so I picked ones that were slightly smaller to make it more doable as I push this book back into slots. This seems to be God, it's windy. This seems to be the typical for this kind of book, where it's going to be cozy and kind of involve people learning more about how they actually want to live their lives. I'm assuming it's that. Then the next prompt is a new author to you. Very easy to do, especially when I'm doing NetGalley books as well. So there's one called Transcription, and this is really short. It's like 150 pages, and the main character from this book goes and visits, I believe it's his best friend's father, to interview him, but he loses his audio recording device before he gets there and doesn't tell him, and does the interview. And I don't know any more than that, but it seems like it's going to be a short and interesting read. Then one that actually gave me a surprising amount of struggle, and that is Rain on the Cover or in the Title. And I had to look through a lot of books, but this is the only one off of the entire NetGalley or physically owned list, which is all I was pulling from for this, that has Rain on the Cover, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is a hell of a book to put in a readathon. So, Nightingale tells the story of 2 sisters separated by years and experience, in war-torn France. Heartbreakingly beautiful, celebrates the resilience of human spirit and durability of women. It's a novel for everyone, a novel for a lifetime. So this story is what it's like to be a woman during the war, when women's stories are all too often forgotten and overlooked. So I do think I'm going to very much appreciate this, but I think I would have wanted to read it when there wasn't much else going on. So I am going to have to plan around this one. But it should still be very, very good. I'm looking forward to finally getting to it. Then a book that has a small town setting, and I've went with the Matcha Maker Cafe. I can't remember specifically, but there's something in the synopsis of this one that suggests that they are in a small town and that like someone has come visiting. So again, this is another one of those cozy translated Japanese novels that all have the same concept. So this one is longer though. This one's like 400 pages. So I think it's also a romantasy. We'll see. We'll see how it develops. But that's what I'm reading. I think it's set in a small town. The next square is self-care. Now this is just to do some self-care for yourself. My birthday is within this bracket, so I am assuming that at some point self-care will occur. So we'll see what happens with that. Then House on the Cover. This is another one that took a surprisingly long time for me to get something, but I've went with The Faraway Inn by Sarah Beth Durst. I read The Enchanted Greenhouse by her and loved it, so I'm very eager to dive into some more cozy fantasy by her and see if she is an author that I now love, or if it was just The Enchanted Greenhouse. I think I'm going to love it, but it's always good to double check. A book that is 400 plus pages. This one comes in at exactly 400. I have others that are longer, but I've picked this one, and that is Mostly Human Resources. I, again, have this on NetGalley, but I've also got it for the prompt for the R Fantasy challenge of a book that I don't know anything about before I go into it. So I don't know what this is about, other than what the cover tells you and the title. So I can't tell you anything about it, that's the whole point of the prompt, but I'm going into this fairly blind, but it seems to be animals, a forest, human resources on a desk, so like, is it animals? But then human resources, so mostly, I'm trying to figure it out and I should just run with it, it's fine. The next prompt is spooky / spoopy. Either one, and I went with The Lighthouse at the Edge of the World, I think is the full title. I couldn't fit it down on my notebook. For some reason I convinced myself that this one was historical or contemporary, and so I've been putting it off, but it actually is speculative. I still don't know much about it, but it definitely is speculative, seems a bit dystopian, set in the future, so again, this one should be a very curious read, and I'm looking forward to finally getting to it after I mistakenly thought it was something else. The next prompt is a second-hand or borrowed book. Previously I've been reading the Discworld books for this prompt when Victoria has put it into one of her challenges, however I have finished the Discworld and I've not started a reread of the whole 41 book series just yet. So instead I'm going with Kill the Father by Sandrone Dazieri. This is a book that was my dad's, so second-hand / borrowed, I don't think he wants it back, and this is a mother and son are abducted from a park in Rome, launching a massive manhunt. The chief of Rome's major crimes unit lures to the case two of Italy's top analytical minds. There's a warrior-like detective and a man who spent 11 young years captive, abducted by a mysterious man who calls himself the Father. Curious. So that's what this one is, very different from the rest. Everything else has been I feel like it kind of fits more in with this, but a lot of this has been very fantasy based, and instead I have a thriller, a mystery, a crime novel, I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that despite its thickness, the genre means it's going to be a pretty fast read. A book with an animal on the cover, I've went with The Bone Door. I read Voyage of the Damned by this author and absolutely loved it. I still have my copy up there and I'm debating whether or not to keep it because I loved the book, I flew through it, it was a great time, 4-star read, and it's Goldsborough, so it's a beautiful edition, but it is a mystery, so I'm never going to reread it. So that is why I didn't then purchase the Goldsborough special edition of The Bone Door, but I did see it pop up in NetGalley and I was like, I am still curious to read it and to see if it's the same thing with this author. So, don't know what it's about. Do I for any of these? No. Have I checked? No. Well, yes, I just forgot. But that's what I'm going to be reading for this one. We shall see how well it goes, but of course this has a rabbit on the cover. Okay, the next prompt is a backlist book, and for this one I've managed to fit in one of these 10 books are going to expire by the end of the year books, which is not good because I have 2 more and haven't been able to fit them in. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But this one is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. It's the 3rd and final book in the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. The quotation marks is because she's now extended the series and the world. I will not be carrying on. I really struggle with Schwab's writing. I love the concepts in this series and the ideas and how she puts them into practice, and yet I never seem to care about any of her characters. So I don't know. I find that just as weird as you do. I don't know why it happens, but it does. So I am going to be finally finishing off this, and then this book is going to be sent to Sweden, to my friend Annie, because it's more difficult, of course, to get English books over there in Sweden, and she would like to read this. So let's just finally get... How big is this? This is big. It's 660 pages for a book that I'm expecting not to enjoy. But I can finally get through it. I can finally get rid of it. It is one of my backlist books. The next prompt is to do a reread, and obviously a large number of books I could go for this, and there are some that I want to reread and haven't yet, so theoretically this would have been a great time to do that. Did I? No. Instead, again, birthday month is within this bracket, so I'm going to reread The Naming, otherwise known as The Gift by Alison Croggan. This is the first time I'm holding up the American edition, as the one I'm going to read, so give me a second. I've shown this a few times. Right, I have read and reread my edition, which is the English and Australian copy, into oblivion. The pages are just loose, and I have to put them back in the right place every time I want to read it. And I love it, and I will never get rid of it. This is my very special edition. However, it's not really readable anymore. And they had new editions come out in the States with new covers that I quite liked. They're not anything like, oh my gosh, but I do quite like this, and I need a readable edition. So I was like, well, I feel like the Pellinor series, the books of Pellinor, is reasonable for me to get a second set of. So this will be my first time reading the naming. I will notice if there are any changes between the US and the UK edition, so it should be interesting. But yes, I will be reading the naming instead of the gift. I said it already. And I'm really looking forward to diving back into this world. This just feels weird to hold up. If you don't know, whilst trying not to spoil it, in this book we follow a young girl named Myrad who is discovered enslaved in a barn in the countryside by a mage who is like, you have magic powers, why are you stuck here? You could free yourself. And he frees her, helps her escape. They go to the cities that have the regular magic there, and they discover that she is indeed powerful, she indeed has magic, and it turns out that she actually has to help save the world from this big evil. To do a very simplistic overview of it, I adore this series to within an inch of my heart. It's what my channel is named after, and I love rereading it, but I just don't have enough time lately, so thank you, Victoria, for doing this prompt, because that way I get to squeeze in a reread of my beloved and finally read this American edition for the first time. Okay, then, the next prompt is a body on the cover, and I went with A Desolation Called Peace by Arcady Martin. Now, this body is alive, but Victoria said that counts, so it's fine. This is the second book in a duology, a space opera duology. The first one is very political machinations. We are following someone who's just been voted in to be essentially the Member of Parliament for their offshoot on the mainland that does not care about the offshoots. Very bad explanation, but there's loads of political machinations and stuff that go on, and this is the continuation of that. I am really excited to finish this duology off. It is so interesting and thought-provoking. It's not one that I rave about, but it is one that lingers in the mind, so I'm very curious to finish this out. The next prompt is a cozy or comfort read, and for this one I went with The House Witch by Emily Nakota or Delamach. This was gifted to me by the lovely Hannah from Bookworm's Feast, and I've put it off because it's not too big, but it has tiny writing. But you can tell by the cover this is supposed to be cozy as shit. So, I know nothing. Finley joins the kitchen of the King and Queen of Daxaria. He serves as the royal cook, but he has a secret and his past begins to catch up with him. He has to negotiate court politics and stay out of trouble with his familiar, the fluffy back kitten, Kraken. Things become more complicated when he catches the eye of a certain lady who just so happens to be part of the royal court. So it's got romance, it's got coziness. I am looking forward to finally giving this one a shot. The next prompt is to continue a series, and I have Silver and Smoke by Helen Shearer on my NetGalley shelves, and this is the third and final book in this specific trilogy. I am so excited to read this. I've put it off because it's long, and I'm not always in the mood for a romantasy. However, I read these really, really quick. I read the first book as part of a read-along with the book break team, and I read it faster than everyone else and just had to make notes so I could go back each day for the sections to talk about where everyone else had got up to because I couldn't put it down. So even though this one is 450 pages, which is a fair whack, I'm going to blast through it. Once I pick it up, that is it. So I am looking forward to finally getting to this one. In this series, it links in with some other series that the author's done, which I haven't read them, but we're following someone who has a certain level of ability and power with the magic that's in this world, and she ends up going to a school and she is treated like any other normal student. People don't know how much power she has, and she is trying to learn how to do this, but she is also a princess and is therefore being protected by a guard, romantasy, and there's a lot of other aspects going into it, but the world building is fantastic. I love the magic system, and the romance was pretty decent too. Okay, I hate this prompt. From my own faults. So the next prompt is random pick. And the reason I hate it is because I haven't set anything up to do a random pick in years. However, I used to do random picks a lot for my TBRs. So what I always go to is to just take something out of this jar. which has, can you see, it has loads of slips of paper in, but these books have been on my TBR for a while or have been read. So either this is going to be something that I've been putting off for forever or something I've already read. So let's just see what this is. Okay, I've read this one, A Natural History of Dragons. Already read that. Next one. The Ending Fire. I've read that one too. Have I read all of these now? Upon a Burning Throne. Fuck's sake. So this one was gifted to me by the wonderful Carrie from Caring for Books, and I think I'm really going to enjoy it. However, it's quite large, which is why it hasn't been finished yet. Fuck's sake. How big is it? This is, oh for God's sake, is there not pages? This is almost 700 pages in a tall format. Welcome to the Burnt Empire. In a world where demigods and demons walk amongst mortals, the emperor of the vast Burnt Empire has died, leaving a turbulent realm without an emperor. Two young princes, Adri and Shvete, are in line to rule, but birthright does not guarantee inheritance, for any successor must sit upon the legendary burning throne and pass the test of fire. So, this does sound absolutely fascinating. I think I'm going to love it. It's by Ashok K. Banka. I think I'm going to love this book. I've just been putting it off because it's huge. I knew it, and that's why I don't like this random This one, Disability, Visibility, I've read that. I may as well check this through now. Unwell Woman is already on the TBR, that would have been a nice one to pick. Can you double it up? I guess I would have had to pick another one. Red Sparrow, I'll have to keep that, that's another big one. What else is there? Assassin's Quest, another big one. And High Voltage, which I've read. So I now have 2 books in this jar. So I either need to set myself up some sort of spinning wheel with every book that I own and haven't read, or I'm reading one of those 2 the next time I have to do a random page. Then the final prompt is to match a book to the Halloween treat. I found this interesting to do because unlike Americans, we don't have very stereotypically branded sweets for each season. Like, there are definitely things for each seasonal holiday, but it's not like, I'm thinking of like candy corn in the States and things like that. So I had a look, I had to Google what sweets there are at Halloween, because if you don't know, if you go trick-or-treating in the UK, you'll usually get like little bags of Haribo or like small miniature chocolate bars, things like that. And so that obviously doesn't lend itself very well to a book cover. However, we do have one gummy gelatinous sweet or candy, and that is vampire teeth. And I see this quite a lot, and I do quite like them as well. So for that, I then went with Mr. Stoker and the Vampires of the Lyceum by Matthew Gibson, which I felt fit in perfectly. A young actress has been attacked, suffering bite wounds, and Bram Stoker then has to try and help. And he is the author of Dracula in this book. Increasingly perplexed by the unsettling behaviour of his governor, Stoker soon starts beginning the worst, and then another attack reveals a vicious Prussian baron returned to London as a vampire seeking revenge. Interesting. So I got this book when me and Mr. Pellinor went to a signing and a talk from the author, which is why this hasn't been read yet. This is dedicated to the both of us. We went 50-50 with it, and I put it off reading it because we talked about reading it together. But Mr. Pellinor is not really a reader. He's read 2 books in the last 5 to 10 years. He likes books, he just doesn't read. He reads mainly on trains, and we now have a car, so he doesn't get the chance to read anymore. But that's why this one has been put off. I did talk about maybe reading it to him. He was not the most enamoured by this concept, but also I know he won't mind if I just read this myself. So that's why it's been on the TBR for so long, but it is finally being read. I've had it since 2024. 2026 is the year. I'm still so annoyed about... Why? Why the huge books? Anyway, my own fault. These are the physical copies that I have for this, but that is my TBR for the Autumn Reading Challenge. Obviously, Victoria is linked down below, so please go and check her videos out. She's currently slightly inactive. She's going through some medical care at the moment, and so is obviously focusing on herself and not her channel. But when she is active, she puts out amazing content that is just so peaceful and just so enjoyable to watch. So please do go and check her out, give the challenge a go. You can enter it, and I think there is a prize that is won by people who complete the challenge. I've never actually entered the end, even though I've finished the challenge every time. I just enjoy doing it, honestly. So please do go check her out. If you'd like to see how I actually manage with all of these 24 books and whether I complete it or not, which for the first time is a very real possibility that I will not, then please hit the subscribe button and I will see you folks in the next video. Bye!